I'm kneeling on my bedroom floor, so it must be time for another episode of Anchor's Points. I'm Anchorpete, and welcome to another episode of Anchor's Points, where I consume media like novels, comic books, movies, and TV shows, and then I review them for you on here. I consume this media because I am going to anyway, but I want to talk to you about the media I think that you would enjoy. For today, I'm reviewing yet another Valiant book. I am participating in what I'm going to call my Valiant Victory Lap. For the Valiant Victory Lap, I am going to read and review Valiant comic book trades from all their main titles: Harbinger, Bloodshot, Exo Man of War, Rye, Shadow Man, all the goodies, right? And I'm going to go from the point that I stopped buying Valiant books because I was getting poor to the present day. And luckily, because of Comixology Unlimited, I'm able to read all those comics by just paying a monthly fee. And I don't even get paid by Comixology to say that. I just know it's a great deal. I pay like $6 a month and I get tons and tons of free comics then, right? So, we are up to Harbinger Volume 5, Death of a Renegade. Harbinger is about characters that have mental powers. This makes them psiots. They have inherent abilities that they're born with, and they can be activated by another psiot or by a sort of torturous process. And so the most powerful psiot on the planet is Toyo Harada, and he runs the Harbinger Foundation, and he has been recruiting psiots for years. At the beginning of the Harbinger series, he recruits Peter Stanchek, who had issues growing up because he also had psiot abilities. And he was trying to block out the voices and all of the thoughts from the people around him for years. Peter Stanchek doesn't agree with Toyo Harada's view of the world and the fact that he secretly controls the world, and so he rebels. And Peter runs away from the Harbinger Foundation. He recruits a bunch of other psiots, and they become known as the Renegades. And I talked about them in my previous Valiant issues. In this trade, one of the Harbingers dies. The moment when the Renegade dies is in the middle of the trade, and so it's kind of hard to review the entire trade without spoiling it, but I'm going to try my very best. Peter and his crew meet another character named Octavio, who goes by the hacker alias Axe. It's like the @ symbol and an X, right? And Axe is wanting to take down the Harbinger Foundation because he knows that they are connected to the death of his sister. Axe's sister was a journalist who was killed during the Harbinger War event in Las Vegas. And so he wanted to uncover why she died because it was covered up. And Axe learns all about the psiots and about the Harbinger Foundation because they're not public knowledge yet. In the beginning of Death of a Renegade, we learn about Axe and his situation, and we know that he is a big threat to Harada. Harada's plans will be exposed to the world if Axe is able to hack into their mainframe physically and get all the information about Toyo Harada and his machinations, right? And so Axe is able to be discovered by Peter Stanchek and his Renegades, and together Peter and the Renegades come up with a plan to get Axe into a Harbinger Foundation building so that he can get into their servers and hack them directly. And so, so much of Harbinger is a cat and mouse game where you have Harada and his forces constantly looking for Peter Stanchek and his Renegades. And then you have Peter and his Renegades, and Peter is always using his mental powers to block and confuse and distort Harada's forces, right? To keep them safe. And it's a chess game between Harada and Peter. And so when it comes time for the Renegades to infiltrate this Harbinger Foundation building, it's like an Ocean's 11 situation where they have to think of, 4 steps ahead just to get into one of these buildings. And unfortunately, the plan doesn't go as they would like, and one of the Renegades dies. Death of a Renegade collects the issues leading up to issue number 25 of the Harbinger series. Now, this is a very impressive feat. You see, when we look at all the sales of comic books within a year, if we look at it as a pie, almost all of that pie is devoted to Marvel and DC books. Most of the comics that are bought by comic book readers are Marvel or DC books. And then there's a small sliver that makes up every other comic book company's books, right? And Valiant is a part of that sliver. Now, because Marvel and DC take up such a huge portion of the profits that are made on comics, it's not very likely for a independently published comic book to get to issue number 25. A lot of times they just make what we call limited series, which are like 6 issues of a comic. And sometimes they don't even get to that. So to get to 25 is very impressive. Harbinger Death of a Renegade marks this turning point for the Harbinger franchise at Valiant. Because what happens is the main series ends, and then there is eventually another spin-off series called Harbinger Renegades, and then there is another spin-off series called Imperium. Now, I'm not going to tell you which Renegade dies, but I am going to spoil the fact that Toyo Harada does not die in this trade. And so Imperium is actually about what Toyo Harada does after Death of a Renegade. So, in Death of a Renegade, as I said, the team has their plan to expose Harada to the world. And, spoiler, they do, right? And in the course of trying to expose him to the world, one of the Renegades dies. And this happens at the midway point of Volume 5. And then the rest of the trade is dealing with the fallout. What is Harada going to do now that his secrets have been exposed to the world? And what is going to happen with the Renegades now that a member of the team has died? And how do they all feel about the member of that team dying? As I was reading this trade, I was eager for the team to get to the point where they were going to break into the Harbinger Foundation and expose Harada's secrets. I was like, all right, can we get moving on? There's many shots, and you'll see from the images I use in this video, there's a lot of shots of the Renegades just kind of walking together and walking with Axe, and also walking with Animalia. I hope I'm saying her name right. Animalia, and she's another Psyot that the team was able to rescue in the previous trade. Her Psyot ability actually allows her to create like cartoon-like images that come to life and usually attack people in gruesome ways, and she herself can take on a cartoon appearance. It always kind of reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because it's like regular people and then there's just like a cartoon character right there. So Animalia, Axe, and Peter Stanchek and the Renegades are the ones that break into these facilities, and a good portion of this trade is them preparing for that scenario. And I had to say that, like, I was kind of really wanting them to get, like, let's get going. Let's go break into this. I want to see what happens next. Now, that being said, once they go fulfill their plan and the Renegade dies, and then we have to find out what happens next, that's when I was really bought in. I really wanted to see what was going to happen next. Because the Harbinger series at its core is about Peter Stanchek and Toyo Harada. These two super powerful beings who just by their nature are inherently powerful, right? And how are they going to affect the world? And Toyo Harada is just so intriguing to me, and so many Valiant fans feel the same way too, because he is just like, you know, God level powerful. And you know that he has these noble ambitions to basically save the world from humanity, but his own arrogance and ruthlessness gets in his way. And we see that in this trade, and characters even kind of vocalize that at one point. And so I know that Imperium is coming after this trade ends, and I want to see how he responds to the world. How does a person that has absolute power react when the world is reacting to him, right? This book is filled with that whole philosophical argument. What would happen if a character had mental powers or the power to change the world, and would they go too far, and how would the world react to them? This book, just like the previous volumes, is filled with that. And it also has these great character beats leading up to the death of a Renegade, and then after the Renegade dies too. So I'm going to go ahead and give this book on my Clemmy scale 4 Clemmies. Okay, so that's my disjointed rambling about Harbinger, Volume 5, Death of a Renegade. I think my next episode is going to be another book review in which I'm going to be talking about The Wise Man's Fear, which is the sequel to The Name of the Wind, which is possibly my favorite novel I've ever read. Thank you so much for watching. Please tell me in the comments below if you had a Saya ability, any kind of super ability whatsoever. What would it be and what would you do with it? And if you could please hit that like button and also subscribe to Anchorpete. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Please stay safe.